Welcome to the Exhaust Notes Podcast.
What is good? Welcome back to the Exhaust Notes Podcast. My name is Nick Engvall. I've got a whole host of people with me tonight to discuss probably my favorite episode of last season, the fantasy draft.
Really?
Rowett, Trevor, Aaron, Todd, how you guys doing?
Everybody all at once, everywhere, all at once. All the things from Todd's favorite movie of 2022.
That actually was my favorite movie of 2022.
I know my co-host well. Trevor, how you doing? How's Canada?
I'm doing exceptionally well. I am very excited for next weekend and the first race of the year. So let's go.
Awesome. Aaron, how about yourself?
Thanks for having me back. I'm excited again for this, especially because, spoiler but non-spoiler, I have a better draft position, so
Spoiler.
I'm confident.
Thank you.
Yeah, what position did you get in the draft last year, or the final total? What was it?
Last
that
year,
last?
Aaron got fourth.
That would be last.
Yeah. Okay. I want to rub that in now before your boy wins the rest of the season.
So here's the other thing. Nick was the only one Nick and I got the same picks last year. Nick got the second overall pick. I had the third overall pick. And this year we're also going to have the same picks.
And last year we finished with Todd in first, myself in second, Rowett in third, and Aaron in fourth. This year, we bring Trevor into the mix. We're changing up the rules a little bit. We're going to add a little flavor to it. We're going to throw in a trade deadline. That'll be to be determined. But I'm excited. We ran the randomizer beforehand. We're what's the order?
The order is Aaron, number 1. Nick, number 2. Rowett, number 3. Trevor, number 4. Todd, number 5. And Mr. Engvall, you're bearing the lead. We have new points to give as well with the fastest lap. After what felt like a long, arduous congressional session between the 4 distinguished gentlemen from America and the 1 distinguished gentleman from Canada, we have now agreed that the fastest lap will be worth 3 points for every race. Todd Yates will now offer a dissenting opinion. I concede my time to the gentleman in the Rangers hat.
At least you didn't call me a baseball fan again.
Yeah.
No, I have no dissenting opinion. As Nick mentioned, we are going to throw a wrench in later this season with a trade deadline, and we have fastest lap points now. Draft works like usual. We're going to do snake draft. They just ran down the order, so I think we get into it, boys.
Before we do, let's just remind everybody, because this is always somebody's first podcast, and this is always someone's last podcast. That sounded cryptic, but nonetheless, I continue on. How this works is we look at every single race, and if you are in first place, you get 20 points. Second place gets 19, all the way down to 20th, where you get 1 point. If you do not finish, you get 0. We've added 3 points for the fastest lap. There is a trade deadline that we're still going to iron out. And yeah, comedic hijinks will ensue because somebody will mess up and we will all laugh at them. And I just hope to God it's not me.
And just to clarify, the fastest lap points for our draft don't work the way they do for the actual racing. You can be dead last and pull a fastest lap and still get the 3 points. Correct?
Yes. We are a fantasy league of inclusion and diversity. We
call it the Latifi rule.
How dare you? That man single-handedly cost me the damn thing last year.
And just to clarify, if your Ferrari engine blows up, you get 0 points?
Sir, please don't. Word hurts.
I had Alonso last year, so I was very sad.
If you had Alonso last year, you basically won if you asked Alonso, Aaron. So I think you're going to do well this year.
There's a new side rule that we add on whatever points Alonso say he's missing to your total.
It's kind of like free
So
parking.
I think you got like 80 or so more points last year.
Yeah, for sure. See,
Perfect. So, Aaron, speaking of, do you want to start us off with the first overall pick? And before you do, what is your team name? Do you have a team name?
I don't have a team name yet. Last year I had the 4 youth and the old guy. It was something like that. So that was after my team was chosen. So we'll figure it out as the picks come along.
Okay.
So.
Well, then please start us off.
All right, guys. With the number 1 pick of the 2023 Exhaust Notes Fantasy draft. That sound right?
Yep.
Perfect.
And like
The least surprising pick ever.
Esteban. Oh,
you
wait.
son of a-
Danny. Oh, sorry.
Ouch.
Sorry.
Oh.
We're going to go with Mr. Max Verstappen, the Dutch King, the Drive to Survive 1 hour interview man. He's gonna. I mean, RB looks, for those that watch preseason, Red Bull looks pretty strong, pretty much in form. Of course, we don't know what the teams are doing, but I mean, pretty much first testing session, top to timesheets. Red Bull was pretty consistent. Honda said they got over last year's ethanol issues. The height differences doesn't look like they're impacting them. So either way, it's Max, number one.
Number one in your hearts.
Number one in your hearts, number one in your program.
Number one on his car.
Yep. And if it's on his car, it's true.
That's a conversation for a future episode. The number one on the car. I have so many thoughts about that. But the second pick, I'm actually going to throw the slight curveball here and go with a totally emotional pick and take Lewis Hamilton.
Wow.
What?
Looks like
I was practicing my surprise face for Aaron, and now I just have to use it for Engvall. What the hell?
Just going for it.
Yeah, I respect
just
it.
going
Team
for it.
Lewis.
That way Rohit gets to pick, I mean,
Don't you do
I like
that?
how Rohit
just
had pretty
remember
much-
this at the trade deadline, Rohit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot you guys can see the exhaust notes thing. I've been mock drafting you.
Yeah, he pretty much had the first round filled out, and I was like, "Yeah, that actually sounds pretty accurate." Threw a wrench in that one real quick.
Listeners, for next year, make sure that if you're doing a mock draft, do not do it on the goddamn community spreadsheet because you will be embarrassed.
I mean, to be fair, I do think Lewis, and a lot of people don't think this, but I think Lewis is going to have a better season than George is.
He is, and I think Mercedes is sandbagging right now.
Oh, really? Well,
Did you see their all hands on deck meeting after day 2 of testing where they were not very happy looking?
Yeah.
No, I did not. Please tell us more about this, Trevor.
No, there was a lot of stuff poking around on Twitter on, I guess, what was that? Saturday night about big engineers and Toto meeting where they were looking very serious after day 2 of testing, and they did have a better day 3, but I think there's still a lot of concern about the Mercedes car, so we'll see what happens.
On a scale of Toto
It didn't
and the
look like
infamous black turtleneck.
it didn't look like sandbagging.
Okay, fair. No, I was just going to ask you, on a scale of Toto and the black turtleneck versus Toto in what we are describing as a highly choreographed dance between him and Christian Horner in this year's Drive to Survive, how angry was he? Was he leaning more towards one or the other?
Well, he was a 7 out of 10. So
Okay. So it's
not
black
quite.
turtleneck, but it's rumpled.
It's loose. It's a relaxed turtleneck.
Yeah.
his
Maybe a
shirt was
mock-
untucked.
Mock neck.
A Galapagos neck. All right, I'll go next. I had one person in mind, but I'm going to just take best available. Give me Charlie Leclerc.
I thought you were the
No, listen,
Carlos fan.
I
though.
am a Carlos fan, and I'm still trying to win because I'm salty about last year. So look at it this way. If I win, great. If I lose, I have so much more content to milk, which is Carlos is the better driver. So it's a win-win for your boy. Trevor? You're
Well,
rocking
I didn't
the
think-
actual suit of one of the teams, but is that the direction you're going to go in?
I am definitely taking the second best driver on the grid this year, and I will take Monsieur Perez.
Nice. Canada and Mexico coming together in a way to take all the Americans out of this grid. So well done, Trevor. Well done.
Logan Sargent is still to be heard from, so.
Oh, I don't know if you heard. His name is Josh.
That episode hasn't released yet. Oh, Lordy. That's me. God,
Todd, you're up.
who is left?
I already think Trevor's going to win if based on who Todd picks as his 5th overall pick.
Well, I've got
fifth and
snake
sixth.
draft, right? So I got the
you
next
got
two.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to take the sensible one. Did you actually put these in finishing order of last year's championship points?
No, I just put it in terms of the
Oh,
constructor.
never mind. Yeah, okay. It was. All right. Wow, I actually thought Lewis was gonna be hanging around at pick 5 for
That's
some
what I
reason.
thought, but Nick Engvall ruined my diary.
I'm gonna take George Russell with my 5th pick. And I feel like if I don't take him now, this 5th person is adding an element. If I don't take him now, he's not gonna be there by the time I get a pick again. I'm gonna take Fernando Alonso.
No.
Oh.
Oh, I knew that was coming as soon as you said it.
All signs are pointing up for Aston Martin, and
yeah.
Lance Stroll's going to be a point getter this year. So
Not if you hear my hot take, because that was the one that rendered Todd speechless. All right. Wow. That definitely throws a wrinkle. Trevor, you're up.
Well, Todd just reminded me when he said all signs are pointing towards a good year for Aston Martin. So I'm going to take the other signs, and I will add the Ferrari driver to my team.
Very nice. That's who I figured you would go with, and I like your team already. All right. So let's see. Who's up next?
It's just crazy. Carlos made it that far.
It is.
Yeah. I was hoping to reenact my 2 picks from last year where I was going to try to go George and Carlos, but I didn't think Carlos would last that long, and I was proven to be right. All right. No, fuck it. Why not? I am an Esta bandit through and through. Go ahead and give me Ocon.
To be fair, he was next on my tier list as well.
All right, Nicholas. I'm going to put
right.
Nicholas Latifi there just to see if you're paying attention.
Seriously. Wow, what do you do? Do you go with driver or team, or do you somehow try to balance it out? Because like the rest of the field is looking a little dim.
Oh no! Put it this way: I think there's one pick. You're trying to sandbag a little. We know who you're going after, and if you don't go after him, he's not going to get past Aaron.
The team doesn't look that good though. That's
the problem. Yeah.
Keep going emotional.
Yeah.
Go with the guy with the San after his name.
Yuki-san.
Yes.
I'm gonna go with Lando Norris.
Don't sound so excited
I
after
know, you
making
sound so
it.
sad.
Yeah.
It's not like you had to take Lance Stroll.
I mean, honestly, I'm more optimistic for some sort of crazy thing happening where Lance Stroll or a potential replacement makes him like a sleeper in the field. I have total faith in Lando Norris's ability. I don't have faith in the McLaren team.
Did you guys see the thing about Will Buxton in Lando?
No.
How he said he saw him punch the door?
Did he?
Punch
They
the
were having
air?
like
Punch
a-
a person?
Post-session meeting or whatever with the drivers, and when he was walking out, apparently he punched a wall. But then Will totally like backtracked on Twitter later and said like, "Oh, it could have been a playful hit. I don't really know."
Did he punch smash my door? All right.
I did not see that. Thanks for letting me know after I picked one.
That's gamesmanship.
That's exactly why. It was after the pick.
Yeah.
All right,
Aaron.
All right. So since it's Snake, it doesn't really matter in these two. But just out of thing, the next person, just because they didn't look as good during testing, but God,
Do it.
I mean, Ocon's already gone, so
Do
it's
it.
Pierre Gasly.
Team Baguette.
We.
As long as their engine survives, I think they could still.
I think they have
Be
a
up
shot
there.
to be third, if I'm being honest. If I think Mercedes regresses the way I think they could possibly regress, but
The
There
hot
are-
takes episode has already been recorded.
so
Right?
why do you think I ended that episode with Alpine finishing third?
There are going to be so many awkward handshakes between Ocon and Gasly this year. Just every race, them just like, do we have to fist bump each other? Do we have to?
Here's what I would like. Because we've nicknamed them Team Baguette, before and after every race, they have to take a baguette and break it together. So they break bread.
I want them to just be seen drinking coffee together, like sharing a croissant or something. Like
That will never
either.
happen, Aaron, unless it's on Drive to Survive and it's orchestrated.
Deepfakes are a great thing. You can do a lot with deepfakes. All right, Aaron.
all right.
What's your third pick?
So, as much as it pains me, but the team looks good. Felipe Dragovich.
You can't even say Lance Stroll's name.
And whoever his successor might be if Felipe was to lose the seat.
That's an overseas
Aston's looking good. Obviously, they're the green Red Bull last year. They made some changes in the offseason, so it's not as Red Bullish, but I mean, they surprised a lot. Everyone on the grid is pretty much saying they're looking pretty good. Alonso's happy for now. We'll see how long that lasts, but I mean, like, let's hope there's a lot of rain, and then we know for sure Lance Boy will probably score points. But yeah, whoever has that second Aston Martin seat, Felipe for at least the first race, and then Stroll whenever he gets back.
You mean Seb Vettel?
And speaking into existence, right?
I'm ready for Wild Hogs Formula One edition with Seb and Alonso.
If he's there by the trade deadline, you can have my whole team. Just give me Seb.
Alrighty. Who's
right,
up next?
back
Nick?
to
I think
me.
it's you.
Another unexciting pick for me. I'm going to go with Valtteri Bottas. Team doesn't look great, but
The car
he's the
does.
best driver from who's left, in my opinion. So
No, I was going to get him, but now I'm in a real Sophie's choice because you know what? Much like the strategy I took with Charles Leclerc, I'm going to take it with my next driver. Give me Oscar Piastri.
Son of a bitch.
And that's exactly why I did what I did. I just want drivers I can hate at this point.
Oh, that sucks because the two guys I was looking at were the last two that were taken. So now I'm a little bit torn.
Bring him home, Trevor. Bring him home. I'm coming home. I'm coming home.
I am going to go a little bit outside, a little bit of a home run throw, and I will take the other alpha with Mr. Guan Yu Zhou.
That's a nice pick. I'm not mad at that.
that is a good pick.
That's a good one. Who's next on my tier list as well?
Joe Guan Yu. Just for clarity.
Zhou Guan Yu
Sure.
or Guan Yu Zhou?
Depends on who the announcer of the day is.
I know. But when they talk about him by his first name basis, they always say Joe. And it sounds like Joe when it comes out with a British accent. So you can call him Joe Guan Yu. Joseph Guan Yu.
What are you going to do about it?
Joey.
With now that he's off the board, Todd.
Oh, that's a tough one.
We're left with 3 teams.
Yes.
Yep. I think oh man, that's rough.
America.
It looks like Williams took a little bit of a step forward. Haas also looked decent. AlphaTauri did not look great. So I'm going to take with my next 2 picks.
Oh, that's right. You get the
You know what? Mr. Never Podiumed, Nico Hulkenberg.
Wow.
And for my follow-up pick, I'm going to take Alex Albon.
Whoa.
I have it traded.
I really wanted to take Logan Sargent just to be like, America, F yeah, but Alex is a proven racer. He'll pick up a...
I think he chose him for his girlfriend.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
senior
that's...
female body inspector Todd Yates.
Hey, she's easy on the eyes, but she's also got a great golf game, so...
That's the long and the short of it.
What color is Albon's hair this year?
I don't care. Just purple?
I think it's bleach blonde, but he was on my list because he just bought an orange Singer.
Ooh. Man of taste.
I'm more interested though, Nico over Kevin.
Yeah, I think Kevin probably has higher peaks, but if you look back at last season, in this like era of car that we're in now, he still had some mistakes, and like I think it got overshadowed by Mick slapping the wall every other race. So he still had some mistakes. He's got a higher potential probably, as we saw in what was that Spa last year. Got pole, crazy wet lap. But I think Hulkenberg will bring me P7 points all day.
It's the German Ocon. All right. Trevor, who do you
once
have in your
again,
last pick?
once again, the hot takes from Mr. Yates continue. I am going to gladly take Mr. Magnussen as somebody that's actually podiumed in his career a couple times. I felt like he had a good start to last year, and then they kind of shut development of the car down. It seems like Haas will do that every year. They'll just stop developing their car about June. But I think he's a professional driver, and he can. I feel like he can bring in P7, P9, P11 a little bit more consistently than some of the other guys on the list. So,
Hey, Haas is supposed to spend more money, or actually just spend to the cap this year.
I'm not going to buy it until I see a Gunther Steiner Gene Haas phone call, because that man truly asked him to do everything, including how he should wipe, whether it should be sitting down or standing up.
They even condensed their stand.
Did you hear about that?
3-person?
Yeah.
3-person.
Their pit wall's now three-person pit wall, and it's going to save them like $250,000 a year in shipping.
Yeah.
Well,
nuts.
sure, but
Is that going to make a difference?
$250,000 on a, whatever, 120 million, whatever the number is a pretty small amount. Like, yeah, sure, it gets you, whatever, half a front wing, but
No, like they
like-
said, I've heard, this is something I read last year, but a new front wing development is about $50,000. So that's 5 front wing developments.
sure, but like Aaron said, in the past, Haas hasn't even spent to the cap. So what's the point of saving money?
Putting it on making a faster car. I'm all for that. It looks hilarious, the tiny pit wall, but
So how about next year? It's just Gunther, Gunther on a bar stool.
just Gunther and like a floaty.
Just on a Segway.
You heard it here first. Barstool Sports' Formula One correspondent next year is going to be Gunther Steiner.
They'll actually just sell the spot to like fans to help pay. See?
Can they sell the seats?
They could
Oh, there you
definitely make more than $250,000 if they did that. Way more.
Yep.
$25,000 a race.
Yeah.
Yep. Shit, I bet you they could charge $100,000 a race and they'd sell to people.
Yep.
All right.
Those are prime seats, even if it is on the P8 section of the paddock.
Yep.
Do I go with the American Latifi or Japanese Cartman? Yeah, go ahead and give me the international man of mystery, Nick DeVries.
I like it.
It's another guy I have gone against in my hot takes episode. So yeah, I'm really leaning into the hate this year.
Nick did not have the greatest of practice days.
Which, from a hot takes perspective, that is music to my ears. All right. Speaking of Nick, who do you have as your last pick?
I mean,
Come on.
This
I
should
guess I'll
be.
go with the wild card and take Josh Sargent.
Josh Sargent.
Wave that flag.
Marco.
I thought you were going to go emotional.
That way, if Yuki actually does well for Aaron, I can bring it up at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I don't know. AlphaTauri looks rough.
Yeah.
And obviously for my pick, I get young Shorts. Is he still the shortest, or is Nick shorter?
Oh, Nick is shorter, I'm sure.
Really?
Ah, damn it. Yuki doesn't even have that for him?
He's like 5'2".
Nick is?
So is Nick. They're both tiny.
Yeah.
I would like for if any of them make it to the podium this year, they should totally like wear a really big trench coat and get on one of each other's shoulders and just take the podium that way.
I hope it's at Coda, just so Shaq can hand him the trophy. And like,
Oh my god. That'd be
That would
amazing.
actually be amazing. All right, let's recap this for the people. Aaron, who are your 4 picks?
all right, so I got top pick Max Verstappen, Pierre Gasly, Lance Stroll, Felipe Dragovich, whoever fill in that spot, and then Mr. Yuki Tsunoda.
All right, and my 4 were Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris, Valtteri Bottas, and Logan Sargent.
I had Charles Leclerc, I had the Esteban himself, Esteban Ocon, I had Oscar Piastri, and I had Nick DeVries.
I had Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz, Guan Yu Zhou, and Kevin Magnussen.
And I had the winning team of Crikey, George Russell, the future world champion Fernando Alonso, Nico Hulkenbach, and Smoke Show Girlfriend.
Oh, is he Native American?
He is. Of the Singer tribe, I believe.
All right, so
I'm going to throw a question to everybody. Which team from the rest of us would you choose if you had to choose a different team?
I'll go Trevor. I really like Trevor's team.
I think Trevor's got a solid team.
Yeah, we'll go Trevor, actually.
I like Todd's team just because I had Alonso pretty high on my list. I actually considered him with my 4th pick because I do think this Aston Martin car is going to be good, and Alonso is still a good driver. So I like that pick.
I agree.
I think I would trade this.
I've got
I
trades
hope
already.
that I'm wrong.
I've already got trades percolating, and I know who my mark is going to be.
I hope that I'm wrong here, but I have a feeling that the Max pick is going to be the Nation of Domination, and
Like,
if he's not winning the race, he's P2 with a puncture somehow or something. He's going to be so far ahead that he just like runs away with it. So I think I would take Aaron's team, especially since he's also got an Aston car, which is going to be fast and will be driven by Sebastian Vettel. So
For how many races, though?
I think he's going to come in for the first race, win the first race, and then they're going to sign him to a new contract.
At the expense
And they're gonna
of
have-
Alonso?
The Constructors World Championship of Alonso and Stroll. And Daddy Stroll's going to be like, listen, Junior, don't fuck this up for me. We got a chance at a Constructors Championship here. Could you imagine that team like against like in reality, Alonso and Seb Vettel?
Yeah, Wild Hogs. I'm looking forward to it. I never knew the
I mean,
Formula
that
One had a
would be a
senior
beautiful
circuit.
thing.
That would be so insane.
I do like how the rumors about Vettel was going to drive for Stroll this weekend, and the fact that he was just like camping somewhere in Europe and sorry I can't answer the phone, I'm busy camping, Like he's such a free spirit, and you know, it doesn't seem like F1 racing is anywhere on his list of things to do this
It
year.
hasn't been gone from him long enough. It'll come back.
No, I'm with Trevor. I like the descent he's made into being Formula One's equivalent of Bill Walton, where it's
true.
He's just doing his own thing. He's just living his life. I'm just hoping that somebody signs him up as an analyst or he does a podcast, because I do think, despite all of his magnanimous environmental looking outs of the world, I still think he's probably going to be a quality race car driver, or more conveniently, he could provide some really good analysis. So I'd be chomping at the bit to just sign him to be affiliated with my team, similar to, I guess, what Alan Prost was to Renault a couple of years ago.
Was it on the first episode of Drive to Survive, or was it in one of the preseason conversations for the commentators that they were basically alluding to Christian Horner trying to get Vettel back to Red Bull, like as if it was actually a possibility?
I didn't hear that.
So it must have been Drive to Survive.
No,
Was that the first
well,
episode?
there has been some noise about that, in the fact that, you know, bringing him home and
Yeah, that's what it was.
yeah,
they're close.
So we'll see.
He did win him 4 titles. I mean, it's not like they could sign him for a day to retire the
obviously,
jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Vettel is out for at least 2 years. I mean, he might come back. He might do like the Alonso, Kimi, Michael Jordan thing. It's just I'm back.
It's going to be
I guess the only
environmentally friendly eco paper that disintegrates after you read it.
Won't be a fax machine. No, but I feel like Alonso is just a racer at heart, and he will be racing into his 70s. Like, you'll see him at, you know, the Masters event at the Indy 500. He'll still be bumping tires with guys, and I feel like Vettel doesn't have that drive to be, you know, driving is everything. So that might be the difference.
Maybe.
Yeah, definitely Alonso's just has that. Obviously, like, especially the European blood and always like karting, especially the guys who've just been karting since they're like out of diapers. Like, it feels like, especially the old school guys, just continuously do it. But yeah, I agree. Alonso's just a driver. Like, even though like Max, everyone knows Max is like crazy. I'm just about to drive. Obviously, Mr. No Personality, because all he wants to do is drive and have a simulator everywhere and do the virtual events and all that stuff. But even then, like, you know, he just seems resigned with, which is a little weird, because he says, you know, I've won the title. Like, I don't really have much more, which is surprising, because most people are like, once you're at the top, you want to stay at the top, right? Or win more.
He
Get those
says,
titles.
like, yeah, I don't, like, the pressure's off. I've already won the title. Then it's just fun from here on out. Like, you just mentioned the virtual racing. He like pissed and moaned about getting disconnected from the virtual 24-hour of Le Mans for like a day. Like,
Dude, that event was horrible.
it's so funny. But like, he only knows racing, and he'll be that exact same type of guy where on like in his off season he goes karting for fun. Like, that's the intro episode when Max was in it. He, like, bless his heart, he tried to make like a dad joke, and they were like, "How's the chair?" Or "How's it, babe? How's it being back sitting in the chair?" And he's like, "Oh, it's quite comfortable." Like, he just has no personality. Like, he's trying his best, but
No, he's gotten media training in the 2 years since he made a Drive to Survive appearance. He's been very professional. Say what you will about him, and God knows I've said a lot in terms of a detracting sense, but the man is very polished. The man will not say anything controversial, because he has other controversial figures in his own organization that will take that heavy lifting for him, in Dr. Helmut Marko and the esteemed Esquire Christian Horner. Like, he has easy, like, literally his job is to race. And when you make that life so simple for that man, like, he should feel comfortable. Like, he has nothing to do except race the car.
Yeah, I don't see him changing. The only thing that, like, I think he will improve at, is actually kind of the smoke and mirrors game that Lewis plays, right? Like that's what you have to do to continue to win as you age in Formula One. And I think Max is will be the best driver on the grid for a significant amount of time. Red Bull presumably will have, one of the best cars for, who knows how long at this point, 2026 maybe. But for Max, like he doesn't need to change anything either, right? Like the only thing that's going to help him kind of outsmart, we saw it. We had conversations about it last season, just in those battles with Charles Leclerc, and like not falling for things, not falling for the just put the pedal to the floor and go, and actually thinking smarter about it. And that in itself was we all were wowed by that. And it's that's not actually something you should be impressed with somebody who's literally the best driver on the face of the planet. They should do that naturally, right? Like they should think strategically on a normal basis. And I think that's just you're going to start to see him start to play the media game a little bit more, but it'll be very Max straight faced way, right? It'll just be no frills, no jokes, no anything other than just misguided, thoughts.
Let me ask you gentlemen this: over under Baku, before we get the first Max outburst where he's threatening to kill an entire engineering family and taking the firstborn of random marketing person, over under Baku.
Definitely going under.
Yeah, I'm taking the under.
Over under Jeddah, the second race.
I do think that he's, now that he's won 2, he's starting to check off more boxes. He probably wants to win 4 because he wants to be Red Bull's, he wants to tie Vettel for the most Red Bull championships. And then, if he gets to that, then he can, take that dartboard of Lewis Hamilton off the wall and, go after 7. He's probably still got all these slights or these, these goals. And every time he says, I'm happy that I just won 2, you can kind of tell that he's like we talked about, it's media training. He's not going to be I'm not going to be happy until I win 8. Nobody's going to say that, but he's so driven and he's still so young that, I do think that he's going to try to, his next one is trying to equal Vettel's 4 straight for Red Bull. And,
I think
keep
this
going
year
from there.
Is 3. He wants 3 in a row because only 2 other drivers have ever done that, Lewis and Schumacher. So he wants 3 in a row. Then his next will be, let's equal Vettel's 4. And then now it's just the target's on Lewis.
Right. Because I think legacy is important for all these guys, and the fact that, he was able to knock Lewis off the perch, even though he needed some help from some race directors,
Michael.
still means that Michael, he does need to, he's still got bigger fish to fry on his career legacy. So.
No, I think I agree with you guys because in a way he's kind of set up his own last dance where every title is going to mean something in the grand scheme of things. I think the other thing that may or may not get overlooked is the fact that he's also ultimately going to be this new generation's fan go-to driver. People that are new into the sport, like most of our audience, they haven't seen the brilliance of Schumacher. They haven't seen the brilliance of Senna. They've caught the tail end of Lewis. This is their guy. This is going to be their measuring stick going forward. And I think similar to what everybody else has already kind of said, that is important because now we're also living in the golden age of narratives being defined regardless of what your sport is. And if he can lock that up as early as, how old is he? 26, 27?
I think he might be 25.
He might be 20. If he can lock that up by, let's say, if he gets Seb's 4 by the time he's 28, sky's the limit. At that point, I would be very surprised if he doesn't get Lewis's number down.
Yeah, Max is 25, turning 26 in September.
And he's already got 9 seasons on the grid, which is insane.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. He's going to be dominant for so. I don't. to Trevor's point, I don't see him getting bored with racing. I feel like he'll just have like he just wants to win, and like that will just be a new target for him each time. Like, okay, so he gets to 8 and he beats Lewis and Schumacher. Well, then might as well go be the first to get double digits. You know, like I mean, it just continually like you could just see him being that driven to survive.
We'll see. I think in 2026, that's going to be obviously with all the regulation changes and all the new manufacturers. That would be like because if he say he won 4 in a row, right, and he goes into 26, that's a champion. But you know, obviously Ford hasn't been around in a bit. Or that that'll be 5. If they weren't good, then you know I could just see him. Because I think when he's in the car, it's like his focus is like driving, and his focus in life is driving, and that's what he wants. But it's also one of the at the point it's like you know how much do you want to go for the ups and downs, some of that stuff. Because you know Vettel and Alonso both admitted it after their seasons. You know like it was rough for them sometimes when you're there and you're in a car that's just not. You know, GP2, right, for Alonso. All that type of stuff.
Well, I think a lot of that we're going to see this year, right? If Mercedes doesn't have a competitive car, like what does Lewis want to do long term, right? That I know we're kind of getting into the hot takes, you know, that you guys talked about on the future episode, but like if Lewis can't win a race for 2 years in a row, does he stick around? And you know, that's always the fear is if you don't have a competitive car and you're used to being a competitive driver, what's going to happen?
I think it's an interesting point, Trevor. And I guess let me ask you this, because on that Hot Takes episode that hasn't been released yet, at least in this timeline, I made the bold proclamation that this is going to be his second year where he doesn't win a race. If that is true, do you think he retires?
I think it depends on if the car is still competitive. Like if Russell wins 3 races and Lewis, you know, has bad luck in those races or, you know, doesn't, you know, isn't at the front, then, you know, he might stick around if he thinks the car is competitive. But if he doesn't, if that car is, you know, instead of being the 3rd car is the 4th car, you know, maybe not. You know, he's got a lot of stuff going on in his life. He's got lots of money in the bank. And, you know, at some point you just don't want to go through the motions. And, you know, we talk about Alonso as somebody who, you know, yeah, he took 2 years off, but he's a race car driver at heart. And, you know, Lewis has other aspirations in his life. So I could definitely see him retiring at the end of this year.
Yeah, definitely. It depends on how the comparison is with George, right? Like Trev said, if George is winning races and the whole year Lewis doesn't, that's a different story than if the car is just crap for both of them and they both don't win. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see because last year also Lewis, you know, he did the great thing of being the tester. Really, he used his car to be the testing, and they both, you know, sacrificed their drives to try to work in that car throughout the year. And by the end of the year, they, you know, it was decently fast. It was a true number 3 for sure. But they caught up to Ferrari, right? Where there was considerations they might surpass Ferrari because of their consistency. So this year is obviously a big one, I mean, for all the teams, but Mercedes for sure. I mean, they went back to black, so they have to win, right? They'll win at least one. If not, then the UK might blow up or something.
Yeah, I have a question because there was a member of this panel that proclaimed George Russell a future world champion, which kind of goes against the narrative that we've kind of said that this is Mac's decade to lose. I will ask that esteemed panel member, I think it was it Tyler Yates? How do you rate George Russell's chances this year? Is he going to be within 100 points of Max?
I didn't have that hot take.
No. I'm just asking because I thought you said previously, like you've referred to him as a future world champion in the past.
Oh, I think. See, that's complicated because I do think he's got the his skills to be a world champion, but that would require two things: Red Bull to fall off a little bit, because I would not rate George higher than Max, obviously, and Lewis not being on the team, which if you listen to the Hot Takes episode, I talk about that a little bit. So, yeah, I think if I put like George Russell against Leclerc, against Lando in a competitive car, I think he could still win a title.
Yep.
I mean, like all cars being equal, I think he's got he's up there for sure. Top, the sharp end, as the Brits say.
And I was also going to mention this next person because you also mentioned him, and there is a Lando expert on the panel as well. Nick, like, what is the realistic expectation for Mr. Norris this year? Because if I'm him, I don't think this is going to be another good year for the car. Like, when do I start looking at my options? Because I don't think he can do that given how this car is. I mean, best case scenario, they completely Landify the car and only he can drive it. But then you're going up against Max, and he's already given you a proof of concept that if you put all your resources towards one member of your team, it can reap good benefits. But I don't know. I think we're going to talk about Lando, Charles, George the same way we talk about the likes of Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, Patrick Ewing as guys that probably should have won at least one. But because they had Jordan in their era, it's not going to happen.
I mean, yeah, they're racing against, Jordan and Curry, whether, like you've got Max and Lewis over the last few years who just dominated. I don't think Lando he doesn't have anywhere to go up right now. That's the thing that's kind of interesting. I don't think that. No, but that's probably super unlikely, right? Nobody at Red Bull is like, hey, Lando has a shot to beat Max. Why mess up? Like, we all know that Red Bull doesn't care if Checo wins championships. They care if Max wins championships. So that second seat is exactly that. It's a second seat. No matter who on this grid takes that second seat, they are always second to Max because he's the proven champion in the Red Bull. So until 2025 or whatever, 2026, there's no seat to move up to that's going to really benefit Lando to the extent of you're competing with Max. Like, okay, if Hamilton retires or, Sainz is gone and either of those seats is open, Lando moves up and he becomes slightly more competitive, but neither of those teams is actually going to compete with Red Bull and Max Verstappen. Like, that's the dynamic duo that is, like, to Todd's point, leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else right now. Probably for the next couple of seasons, foreseeably, potentially even longer, like who knows? But I don't see like guys like Lando, who I think is a great driver. Same with George Russell. Like, George Russell's a great driver, but like, where does he go? It doesn't do him any good to move teams at this point. He moves to Ferrari and becomes slightly more competitive, but then does that hurt his legacy? Like Trevor's talking about, like, there's still something to be said with, the guys that make these extended runs with the team, whether it's Lewis or Seb or Max. People remember those guys and those teams on a much greater level than they remember the one-off, Braun GP winning a title. Like, like those types of things are just a weird nuance to Formula One, right? Like nobody, to go to your NBA comparison, nobody cares that, Gary Payton or Mitch Richmond got a ring with the Lakers. Like, the only person that cares about that is those guys. And if that's what you want to do, then so be it. But I just don't see there being a whole lot of moving around until, like we see a car like Aston Martin, like pop off this season. And then it's like, oh, maybe if I do get into this other one. And I think that's more of a logical move for any of the guys that are kind of in that, 2, 3, 4 range, is like, oh, maybe there's a 5, 6, 7 team that I could take to that 2, 3, 4 range, but they're still not going to win championships.
Trevor, I thought you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say, I think for that to happen, we need these top 3 teams to cycle through their drivers. And, if I looked forward for the next couple of years, I could see these top 3 teams, keeping their drivers very consistent. So there's really nowhere for him to go. And, I think Lando's got to be careful in looking too far forward because, he's got, potentially the best new driver on his team. And it's up to him to show that he hasn't been passed by the next superstar rookie. And, despite the fact that his car might not be great, he's got to step up and make sure that he shows. And it's very similar to, Schumacher last year. Like, Schumacher got destroyed by his teammate, and that's why he doesn't have a seat this year. So we've got to be careful of just because you're the hot new driver or whatever Lando is, 23 years old and has all the potential, if he doesn't, kind of put his foot down on his teammate and say, who's the alpha here, he's not going to have, he's going to lose his luster as the next great guy to move to a top 3 team.
I think obviously this talk about Aston this year is big because their factory's the end of wind tunnel is going to be done next year, right? And McLaren, that's the whole thing. Is like Lando said, he would not hang out, but stay loyal until their wind tunnel is done. When is that? 2 more years? A year and a half? So like I think the troubling thing for McLaren right now is like if they take a step back this year, then definitely I think he like I said, he doesn't really have any place to go. But like if there was an opening, I think that top teams would still choose him unless Oscar just comes out gangbusters, which he could based on his obviously his resume and whatnot on there.
I guess I'll use that to segue into who do you guys think will be the best new driver? And when I say new, I can mean new to the grid, new to a team. Like, who's your predictions?
I mean, I drafted him, so Fernando Alonso is going to get, I think, P3 in the championship this year.
Wow.
It'll be Max, then Leclerc, then Fernando.
Is that in the hot takes episode?
Nope.
No, the thing about hot takes are, it doesn't matter if you need them for just one episode. They're always there. You just need to know where to look.
I think Todd's been really buying into these Alonso postseason interviews. He's just fully on board with the fact that Alonso definitely earned 200 extra points last season.
He did. He lost 90 points. You can check the math.
I'm just
In one
convinced.
race.
I'm convinced he's on Strovovich's payroll after years of going against the Royal Canadian family. Now he's one of them. Like, this is a Greg in succession. Not Greg, Tom in succession. Sorry, spoiler alert.
Wow, plot twist.
This is actually a really good question because there was a lot of movement, not only drivers but principals, team principals.
I mean, I think that's the other thing as well, because as a Ferrari enthusiast, I do hope that Fred Vasseur brings a amount of credibility and maturity to the room, because I just think based on the silhouettes and the brief synopses we got over the course of the first 3 episodes of Drive to Survive, like, Matteo had checked out, it seemed. Like, I'm still convinced that first episode he was interviewing Gunther Steiner for the Ferrari role, and if there's one thing my heart would want, it would be to truly put one chaos agent next to the other chaos agent in more modern Formula One, because I think that's the only way they're going to win a title, or they're going to go bankrupt and they will never race again.
I can't even entertain that. I would love to see that clown show, but I respect Ferrari too much for being the oldest team. I wouldn't want to see them be like an Italian episode of The Office for 23 races.
I mean, Italian, he speaks Spanish, he speaks French, he speaks German. Like, he truly is the prince that was promised from a middle management office incompetency perspective.
At one point, they were very competent, but
yes,
somewhere along the way, they've kind of lost their
I think
pizzazz,
the inflection
and that can
point.
be that can be Ferrari or Haas under Gunther. We could talk about either one of those. So
No, I was going to say, I think what was the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand for me in terms of Haas's competence was when that nerdy Australian kid asked Gunther if he was a rock star or a wanker, and he just laughed a little too hard at it. So I just feel like that's the racing god saying, "You're a wanker now."
I mean, I'm hopeful that because I drafted him, Logan Sargent is the surprise rookie of the season, but I'm not very optimistic on that.
I mean, I think Gasly, just because we're going with the new guys, I think Gasly is going to be. I think at the beginning Ocon will be better, but I've always liked Gasly, so I feel like by the end of the season, he can overtake a.
This is truly his year
to prove himself, right?
Put a stamp on how everybody rates him, because most of the grid rates him pretty highly as a pretty good driver, and says he has the potential to race at the top, whatever. But I think this is the year that he really needs to put up or shut up, basically. But can you imagine those sparks when he's battling his teammate? Obviously, Otmar has no qualms about letting him race, as we saw in multiple races last year, but the one that sticks out was, what was it, Jeddah, when they were going wheel to wheel for quite a while
for 20 laps.
Yeah, I think this is his year to prove that if he's really everything everyone says he is.
Well, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Piastri is the newcomer that makes the most waves. He's got the best track record of any new guy coming into Formula One in quite a while. So, I think he'll probably start a little bit slowly, but as McLaren fixes their car and, Piastri kind of figures it out a little bit, I think he could open up a lot of eyes. And I had him very high on my list of guys to take, and the fact that it didn't come up on my choices was a little bit disappointing. But I think Piastri could really have a solid season, especially if we look at races 8 through 23.
I want to circle back on one more topic, if that's okay, and that is the concept of the top 6 seats being open. Who do you think of the top 6 drivers, essentially Team Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, who is the first seat that's going to open, and what would be your prediction in terms of who's going to take that seat?
I think it's either Checo or if Lewis retires.
Lewis retires, Lando takes the seat.
Yeah.
Aaron, did you give us a pick about both of those possible openings?
No, but man, that's just. I know that every fan will want to hear Danny, but I feel like in Red Bull they would just. I mean, talking about Lando, they've apparently offered him 3 times contracts 3 times. So if they could snatch Lando, I really, even though we know that's Max's team, they're freaking best buddies. You imagine both of them partying it up just right after a race win in the DJ booth and then racing on the track.
No, I think they're best buddies as long as they don't race against each other. I think the minute they become teammates, I think that friendship slowly starts to crack, because I don't think either one of them wants to give an inch, let alone a mile.
No, definitely. But I mean, I think he's choosing because that young group of talent is just so talented. Like Trevor said, like Piastri is so freaking good. Like his potential is like through the roof. I mean, even Logan Sargent. I mean, he had signs. I was watching some of his highlights and stuff like that. Not that I watched a bunch of F2, but he's a competent driver. That's better than some of the guys that have been out there before. So. Yeah, I feel like Lando would take it, because out of the top 6, I mean, though he's a youth, right?
Mm-hmm. Nick, I would ask Trevor, but I think Trevor's frozen in the sands of time right now. But Nick, what about you? What seat's opening up, and who do you think would take it?
I mean, I think Checo leaves Red Bull out of those top 3 teams. I don't see Checo being happy with number 2 to Max for too long. I think we've already seen the greatest number 2 in the history of the sport in this generation with Valtteri Bottas. Nobody has that much patience. These guys all we've talked about as nice as they are on camera and in the interviews, they're all ruthless, egomaniacal maniacs. They have to be this good at driving at this level. So I think he gets frustrated. Red Bull's not going to push him. They're not going to risk anything to upset Max. So Checo probably leaves at the end of this season at some point or some point. And I don't really know who hops in there. I mean, I don't think it's Danny Rick, but I also just don't see anybody in the midfield hopping into that seat thinking, oh, I'm going to be, competitive at Red Bull, right? Like Checo's a great driver. The car's a great car. You're seeing how he's performed and how he's treated by the team, and unless you're one of the really young guys, or maybe Alex Albon, because you've got like a little bit of fire to like prove yourself to Red Bull again. But, otherwise it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to jump into that seat for most people, which is the unfortunate, you have to wait until Max is at the end of his career, the same way that we were talking about Lewis being towards the end of his career when George Russell made the jump to Mercedes, right? Like that has to be in the back of your mind. I'm not going to, necessarily be the number 1 on the team, but if I hop in here a couple of seasons early, then I might be the number 1 when, the king steps down kind of situation.
No, I like your Checo shout. The only one I could think of, and this is a bit of a reach, and it goes in the face of everything I've said, I think Carlos Sainz would come home. And I think while I rate him as a driver, probably better than Charles, but that's just my personal opinion, not that of the panel. I do think he also has the temperament, at least initially, to, let's say, do a shift of 2 to 3 years as a number 2 driver, be happy with the occasional podium or the occasional first place. But I don't know. I mean, it is one of those things that is simultaneously very rewarding in the short run, but then it goes against the face of everything that we've always been taught about these racers, which are these guys are highly competitive assholes that will never give up anything in their life. They feel that they're the best at what they do, and they're not going to go gently into the light.
Isn't Carlos currently in that position with Ferrari though? Like, why would he go to Red Bull?
I think at this point,
so the engine doesn't explode every third race.
No, I mean, not only that, but I mean, I think it's slightly more infuriating to me because I think the talent gap between Charles and Carlos is smaller than the talent gap between Max and Carlos. And as we've talked about, Max being Jordan, I think people are okay playing second fiddle to Jordan if it gets them some of that shine. I'm really interested to see what Ferrari does this year because for all intents and purposes, Charles Leclerc should wipe the floor with him. He is the Italian prodigal son. He's the one that Ferrari has been dreaming about. He's the one that they've been grooming for the last couple of years. But for all of that, Carlos is still always within striking distance. And I would make the argument that as bad of luck as Charles had last year, Carlos almost had worse luck. And it'll be an interesting battle for me.
I think that within the teams this year, there's going to be a lot of good battles. I think that there's not going to be as much disparity between the drivers as in other years. So especially with the new drivers. So it's interesting to see. Like I said, we mentioned this. I think before we started recording, they're like I think the top 6 we sort of know Aston Martin might throw in there, but the midfield, what the midfield looks like, not only within the teams, but within the drivers, I think is going to be really interesting.
We will see.
Can we just make Trevor's image the cover art for this episode? Or should we use that for the hot takes episode? What would be better?
I do think that I do want to say that I think the Checo seat is the one that's going to open up first. And I'm going to say that the driver that takes it has not been mentioned on tonight's episode. So whether it's an F2 guy or something, I feel like Red Bull will do something crazy like when they gave Albon the seat and just say, screw it. We're just gonna go with the next guy. We're gonna find the next guy. Latifi.
They do. I mean, Red Bull has a gigantic driver pool. And if Max is 30 seconds ahead of everyone, it doesn't really matter where their P2 car is.
Yeah.
So
I could see that, especially because their AlphaTauri guys are not, doesn't seem like they're prospects for the Red Bull seat.
unless DeVries shines.
I think that's more likely than Yuki. So I hate to say that, but it's just like, is there any driver that we think this might be their last year for, let's say, the foreseeable future, if they don't perform up to par?
I mean, Yuki's definitely in a hot seat.
Yeah. Yuki and Guan Yu.
Oh, you think Guan?
Yeah.
I just
Joe.
didn't want to call him. I didn't want to call him Joe because the British media. So I'm going the other way. I'm just going to call him Guan.
Red Bull, Checo leaves, and they just bring in and get the PR move and bring in Jamie Chadwick.
Oh, I'd be so
Come
for
on.
that.
Can we give?
I'm
Can we
so
give?
for that.
Can we give Najima
Well,
the
good
hot
job,
trick
right?
crown? Because that was fantastic.
Yeah.
She's in F3, so she's got a ways to go yet. But
No, she's in Indy Lights, I thought.
Indy Lights, yeah.
isn't?
Yeah, she's doing Indy Lights so she can get an IndyCar seat and then prove herself that way. I hope
That's
so
right.
bad that
That would be so awesome.
that she works her way into Formula One. She's talented. She absolutely dominated the W Series, like more than Max dominated last year. It was insane. I hope she gets a seat somehow.
No, there'll definitely be somebody that shakes loose from that next driver pool, whether it's her or somebody else, and I feel like that person is going to steal a seat next year in 2024. So,
And when's the next team? When's the Audi?
Audi's taking
Sauber.
Sauber. Officially, they'll be Audi Sauber after this year because Alfa Romeo is going away after this year.
Got it.
but
Okay.
but that team is still the same team.
Yeah, it's still the same team.
Yeah,
But
there's no.
if another team comes, or two,
Yeah.
joins the grid, then we got more drivers.
Well, I was gonna say, like, we're about at time. Like, Trevor, Aaron, since you're our guest, you have the floor if you've got a hot take for us. We're all ears. I mean, Aaron kind of dropped one there but
No, I want an 11th and a 12th team on the grid. Like I think that would be the best thing for, people like us, and give you more drivers to talk about and all that stuff. But it really feels like the teams don't want that, and unless something happens, you're just going to be stuck with this whole situation where Audi buys themselves into a team, or somebody buys AlphaTauri. So maybe that'll be my hot take. Somebody buys AlphaTauri for $500 million because it's the only way to get on the grid.
I mean, AlphaTauri take is that's been the talk, right? This past week.
Yeah.
Pretty much that it's almost inevitable for that's going to happen. But I think there's going to be teams added. I just don't think it's going to be. I think it's be obviously for 2026. And we have 12 teams on the grid, which would be fantastic. And I feel like there's going to be more works teams, because I also think that to win a championship, you have to be a works team. You can't be a customer car. But that's a personal opinion. But I want to see more manufacturers back into, and then see more of that head-to-head. So we have like, it would just be, I just dream about it. It'd be fantastic for racing in Formula One.
I mean, the rule changes last year definitely made things way more competitive in the middle of the field. So I'm really optimistic towards the future of it. If next big one's 2026, right? Like, it's only a few years away, and there could be some serious. Presumably you've got a couple of the OGs stepping off of the track by then with Lewis, and maybe maybe Alonso, maybe even Bottas, you know, so there could be some really interesting new teams and new, just all around new kind of beautiful chaos that came with last season and all these teams not knowing what the hell was going on, you know, like I think that was like my favorite part of last season was, you know, just looking at like the beginning of the season, obviously as like we talk about it in a previous episode or in the hot takes episode, but like the idea of competitive racing to people that love this sport is more important than the dominance of one team or driver, right? Like we'd rather see 5 teams battling for the podium than Max winning 23 straight races. Although it'd be fucking awesome to see, you know, I don't want to see that, but it in hindsight, we'd all be like, yeah, that was the greatest race drive. That was the greatest drive we've ever seen in the history of anything. And we'd be like thankful to have seen that and experienced that. But like at the end of the day, we're all going to choose to see more competitiveness and see more teams in the mix that actually can, you know, like actually have a shot at a podium, actually have a shot to like be competitive with these top teams. So it's kind of interesting because like I don't really understand the AlphaTauri. I've never really understood the AlphaTauri team in terms of like how that actually works with Red Bull, mainly because like to the point of our conversation in the last 15 minutes, the driver pool at Red Bull and the secondary team, which is AlphaTauri, is not the next best drivers in the pool from Red Bull. Like we don't expect either of those AlphaTauri drivers in a Red Bull seat ever. Like, you know, maybe Nick DeVries pulls off a miracle somehow and Checo steps down and there could be a whole storm of things, but like, it's really odd to me that you have this secondary team, but then you still have this massive pool of drivers that exist that's really going to jump over your secondary team. So I would love to see them sell the team, you know, bring in new energy in some way, but I'm not sure if I really believe that could happen.
Well, it already was rumored, so we can get into that on another pod.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for being a part of the draft. If you want to let everybody know how they can find you outside of the show, feel free to do that.
Aaron, AIRON0828, Twitter, Instagram. Not too much on there, but of course on the Sneaker History and Exhaust Notes Discord is usually where you find me.
Trevor, Iron Trev on all platforms, and like Aaron said, just come hit us up in the Sneaker History Discord because it's been hopping all year, so there's lots of action in there. So come on in, you're gonna find something you want to talk about.
You can find me on
Definitely.
Twitter at Roheezy, on Instagram at RoadM13. OnlyFans, Curry in a Hurry. I think that's actually going to happen this year. So thanks, Todd, for the inspiration and the kind words.
You can find me as a number 1 subscriber to Rohit's OnlyFans and Instagram at dadshoe, SHUE.jpg. Twitter is dadshoe_JPEG. And they already said it, but hit us up in the Discord. Fantasy starts soon. Get in while you can.
Yeah, definitely. My name is Nick Engvall. You can find me at Nick Engvall on all the platforms, and follow Exhaust Notes FM on all the platforms too. I promise we're going to do some more posting this season outside of the Discord as well. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode. See you guys.